Hey guys and everyone, welcome to 49 Sports Games. I am Grant, and this stream on YouTube is being recorded on December 30th of 2025. Yes, we're counting down the final hours of 2025. Thanks for joining me tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about 49 highlight hockey, and the latest topic, of course, has been, do I use the goalie rating on the first shot and then the rebound rating, or do I just do it the original way, which is the rebound rating? So I'm going to show you some data that I've collected, and I really appreciate everyone who sent data in. Very helpful for coming up with a response to that question, and I think it'll be interesting when you get to see some of the data, what we've come up with. And then the second part of this is going to be kind of the initial uh, talk about AI, because AI is coming at us whether we want it or not. It's definitely in its infancy, even though it's growing at an exponential rate, which is just crazy. But we're going to talk more about that as we after we talk about highlight hockey. So welcome to everybody. If you got any questions too, this is a good time to pop up with some questions, and we can do a little Q&A as well if there's anything burning. All righty. Well, we're just getting started here, so give everybody a chance to jump on. Uh, I've been playing through the Utah Mammoth for using just highlights and using the normal save for the first shot. And the in-season set, of course, was done after 21 games. I've completed 19. I don't think I actually put together a data set for that, but I think I've got this figured out that I can jump into Excel and maybe extract that for you while we're on the phone, on the stream. But the other part of that is with the NHL is we're coming up on actually a couple of real key moments for everybody's liking the in-season stuff, because hockey is going to be around the 10th of January. Teams start getting into 45 games, and that's when I'm going to create the second set. So that should be out, sometime middle of January. But prior to that, and man, what a fun year this has been for football. We got the playoffs coming up. So we got this weekend is the final regular season coming up, and then next week. So hopefully by maybe next Tuesday when we're going to do a chat about football, nothing but football next Tuesday. And maybe I'll have at least half the teams done by then, and then I'll try and have the rest out by Wednesday so you can pre-play the games. And again, yeah, it's kind of fun. We don't have any favorites, although Philadelphia is back again. They don't look like the same team that they had last year, but it's the playoffs, time to turn things on. We got some new teams coming in, so yeah, very excited to play through some of the playoffs myself. And for me, it's a rare year because my first NFL team I followed, as you may know, was the Chicago Bears. And then when the Seattle Seahawks came in, I followed them from day one. So those have been my kind of two teams. And there's been way more years where I've not actually said that I was fans of theirs. But then I come up with a year like this, and it's actually an awesome year. Very lucky to have both those teams doing really well. So it'd be interesting if they actually play the first game, because I think there's a scenario where that could actually happen. All right, let's jump into this here and get into some of the data. So we're going to start by taking a look back at, this is the original data. And the original data was done over, I did like 4 or 5 projects, but this was the main one, this 1966-67 NHL replay, because I played through the first 118 games of that season. Use the schedule, use the starting goalies. I did not use the starting lineups. I just chose the uh, lines that come with cards. That's basically what I did. And so, as you can see, if you look down the comparison side of it, the win percent on the replay versus what their actual was, and then the differences in that last column. So pretty close, almost within 10%. Chicago was just, they won so many close games in my replay. Just saw they only lost 5 games in my replay. And then just looking down below the goals per game, the replay versus actual was almost spot on. The power play goals, shorthanded goals, almost spot on as well. And this was all done using nothing but the rebound. And the thing with when I started the game, and if I had to do it again, I would change. I'd say that right off the top, I would actually change. But when I first started it, I thought the rebounds is going to be okay. We're going to just use the goalie rebound because remember, this is the highlights of a game. And so a goalie's not always in perfect position to make a save. And even if he is, these shooters are getting +5, +8, +10s to their shots. So I think in the back of my mind, though, I knew it maybe wasn't quite right, but I kept justifying it. And so when I developed all of the cards, I developed them around the fact that I was going to be using the rebound ratings on the cards. And like I say, if I was going to redo it again, I would go to the normal, just like we do with Quick Decks Hockey. I would go with the normal save first, rebound save second, but I would include a number of cards that would be where use the goalie rebound rating because goalie's not quite in position. Use the goalie rebound rating. That would be a fun way to do it, but that's hindsight. So uh, right now we are where we are. We have a game that works pretty well. Statistics are uh, pretty close. Yeah, and sorry, Vinny, the Habs. Well, they were only -6%. So that's really it's only like a game and a tie away from where they need to be. They were actually further down. They're actually starting to make their way back up in that 66, 67. Someday it'll be fun to actually sit down and play through the entire rest of it. But there's, as you can see, it was about halfway through that season. Okay, so now let's move on to a replay that Jim just posted on the Facebook page. And as you can see here, he plays through, there's 21 games have been played, and he's using the normal goalie save for the first shot and then rebounds for all the rebounds. So just like we do with Quick Decks. I didn't compare any of the win-loss records for his replay here, but if you look down at his total games, he played 21, goals per game 5.86 versus 5.97. So pretty dang close, and that's using the goalie rating, the normal goalie rating for the first shot. So it's close. And before I go on to the next one, just something else that I th- I really think for most of my games, it's kind of like 60 games is a magic number, I think, to get a total representation, maybe not total, but like a 95% confidence representation of the statistics and how accurate they're going to be. It's about 60 games. So just an FYI, I think that's kind of where the sweet spot is for it. Okay, let's go on to this next um, project. And so this is back to the original data again. And the original data here shows the 2008, 2009. What I did was I took the 5 teams from the Northwest and played a double round robin. So that's why they each played 8 games. So you can see down on the bottom there, the total games are 20. The goals per game, 6.2 in the replay and 5.6 for real. And now the goals per game real, that is based on those teams. So Minnesota, Calgary, Edmonton, Colorado, and Vancouver. So that was their average for the year. So in a subset of 20 games, it was the goals per game were a little bit high. Definitely higher than what it was for the 66, 67. And that's kind of what led me back to thinking that, you know, maybe if we're going to use the goalie as goalie's normal for the first instead of his rebound for the first shot, that it looks like there's going to be about a half a goal difference. Well, Jim's replay through 20 games doesn't show that. And I've got a thought about that. Let me just show you. I've got one more data set here, and this was a really cool thing that Vinny did, and I really appreciate the fact that he did this to help out with data collection. And that is, we played through the Super Mario Project, as it was called, the 88-89 Pittsburgh Penguins, and there was, I think, about 10 of us that played through all of the games, mostly 49 highlight hockey. There were a couple games. I know I played one quick decks, and I think there's a few other games played quick decks, but for the most part, these were all played using highlight hockey. And so this is the high scoring year in 1988-89. You can see how the Pens did in the replay. They ended up with 94 total points versus 87 for real. Goals for, they were pretty close. Goals against, they were way better. You know, a differential of plus 35 versus minus 2 in real life. So a 0.7 difference in goals per game. And the thing with that is that we got through about 20 games and we're thinking, should we make a change? Should we make a change? Because the first 20 games that he played, we're all done with the rebound. And so we decided not to make a change. And so we just kind of left it the same. So you can see through that whole season how there was, they were actually below on average for Pittsburgh what their goals per game were in that 88-89. I did go through a little bit more of the data. I just ran out of time to put it into a chart. But the number of games with the highest number of goals in it was 14 on our replay. And I think we had one or two 14 goal games, like total goals in a game, a couple 13, and then, quite a few more at the 12. And when I looked at it, I thought, okay, well, maybe the game does run hot at times. And I thought, you know what, I better look and see what real life was. And in real life, the highest was 15. So in one game there was 15, there was like two or three games that were 14. So I was happy to see that. It kind of justified that. I think the game engine's pretty good, and what it comes down to now is, I think, perception, which is of course incredibly important, especially as a game developer too, right? Because you want it to be statistically accurate, but it needs to feel like the game. And use the phrase that I got from somebody else, and they said, the game seems to run hot at times. And you get a goalie who's a low rating, especially in some of these older seasons, well, even some of the new seasons, and they just can't seem to stop anything. Although, having said that, I've seen a couple of posts lately where, and this might have been in some of the project replays where, the goalie is shaky and as shaky as a 1, so this could be a crazy game, and end up 3-2. Right? So it depends on what cards come up and whether you got 15 cards in a game or 21 cards in a game. So, I can see how that works. And again, it comes right back to that perception. And if I was going to do this again, I would start it with the normal first, and then the rebound rating second, and then adjust all the stats accordingly so that would come out pretty close. So again, like, I'm pretty happy with a lot of the results. I think the original stuff is good. I think playing with the goalie is good. There's been some other posts. David has posted a few things. He's been playing some games where he's doing the normal goalie rating and then adding in an extra card. And I think he had maybe added 2 cards in or 3 cards in and was finding that it was maybe playing, goals were a little bit too high. And I think the key is, and I know I've said this before, but when I create a game, I want it to play like a game from that era. Not necessarily the game that was played in that era, but a game. So if those teams were going to play again, it would feel like that game. That's really been my goal. And my guess is, if Joe or Clay or Keith or some of these other guys were here, they would say the same thing. They just want you to get the feel for it, and then tweak the game to match what your desires are for it. So where does that put us right now and going forward? Well, with the let me just see if I can. I'm gonna look and see if I can pull up some data real quick here on the Avalanche, or Avalanche, the Mammoth, Utah Mammoth. Let's see if I've got a chart that is easy to see here. Hold on, I don't think I do. Well, let's see how this looks here. So I'm gonna go to here. We're gonna try and add in All right. Sorry about that. I think I probably lost, yeah, audio, right? Okay. Trying to do things on the fly here, so not good. But anyway, you could see the data as I was kind of trying to get it to line up on the screen. And the blue, two blue columns, the left-hand column is the goals per game for the replay. And on the right-hand column, it's goals per game for real. And you can see through 19 games, the difference is 5.7 to 6.2. But what you can also see, if you look on the yellow column, the 43 is Utah's goals for and 66 is goals against. And over on the right-hand side, the 60 is their actual goals for and 58 is goals against. So they're 17 goals behind. And I know at least 10 of those came through a stretch of about 4 games where they just were one roll off of scoring goals. It was just kind of crazy. It seems to be making up for it now. But anyway, that is um, the Utah. I said I wanted to do Utah, and that's partway through. So when the second set comes out, I'll play through games. I'll get 20 game 19 or 2021 done. I'll get 20 to 45 played as well. I'm curious to see how that works out. All right, so how do we go forward from here, and what do you think you should do? What are your options? So of course, one option is just play with the rebound the way the rules are written, because it's going to be real close. But if you want to add the normal rating for the goalie in first, then you might want to consider adding a card to the you know to the overall number. So if you roll 666, add a card in, and you could do it whatever period you want. It's your game. You decide how you're going to do that. I'm going to keep collecting data. I think as I go forward, I'm going to be using the normal because it feels right. It's that perception thing. So that'll be what I'm going to do, and then use the rebound rating for just all the rebound shots. And as going back into that data, the original data, the 66, 67, which was like super close with my replay and with Jim's replay so far, very close. And Jim's using normal save rating for the first shot, and I used rebounds. And if you look at the goalies in that area, there's only 6 teams. I think the worst starting goalie was Boston, and they had a 3. I can't remember if it was Cheevers or somebody else was their main goalie, Eddie Johnson maybe, and he was a 3. But most all the other goalies there's a couple 4s, but a lot of them are 5 and 6s. So, uh, and there's not a lot of difference. There's no, a normal rating of 5 and a save of 3, or 6 and 4. They were a little bit tighter, and you didn't have as many outliers on the goalies as you did, especially in 88, 89. And of course, shooting percentages were a lot lower back in 66, 67 than they were through those 80s and 90s years. And so I would think that it would be good. You don't have to tweak it, but if you choose to and you want to do the goalie, consider adding 1 card per game. Uh, that would be my recommendation on 49 highlight hockey right now, if you want to add that in. And like I say, I'm going to. We're going to do another project, which is going to be real fun. Vinny's setting up another project, and we're going to play through the entire 1976-77 WHA season, the entire season. We're going to play all the games and see how that works out. And we're going to use that using the normal goalie rating. And the one other change, and I meant to bring it with me, but I don't have it here right now. And that is, let's see, we can go to this here. And the bottom row along the charts here, I've made some changes to it, and one of them is now called top lines, and it's available on the website. So if you go to the website, you can pull it down. It's also on the Facebook page, and there's one that's called top lines. There's also one that's called third period. Third period is also for like a season like 66, 67, where they really only ran 3 lines. The fourth line guys only got out on the ice when there were penalties. That's really, I went back and watched a bunch of games, and those guys rarely got on the ice as a unit unless they were out with, subbing in for somebody on the top line kind of thing. So we're going to play through 76, 77 using the top lines chart. And it just changes a little bit the number of times that top unit is going to be out on the ice, which will also make a difference on goals scored because they typically have better chances to pass skill tests to get better shots on net. All right, so and let's see if we've got some questions on here. And let's see. Okay, yeah, sorry about the audio, guys. That was my bad. I did go mute there for a minute, but I'm guessing the audio is better. So I've got a new little microphone system here. It's called Movo. I had a Movo system, and that's what kind of crapped out last week. And I got a hold of them and told them what went on, and so I ended up getting this. Just hopefully it works. Sounds like I haven't got any complaints, so I guess that makes it a good thing, right? Okay, so that's where we're at with 49 highlight hockey. Um, we got a couple projects coming up to continue to test it out, and yeah, that's about it. I'll throw in a little word right now about next week's show because next week's show is going to be all about football. Uh, we're going to talk, yeah, the quick decks on the turf and highlight football because highlights is and it was a couple of weeks ago when it finally dawned on me. So just going to digress here just for a minute, and then we're going to talk about AI because highlight football to me, it just I wasn't sure how to make it work, and like you're not going to get stats off of it. You can always come up with stats. You can just roll a dice and come up with stats, but that's not really based on how the game's actually flowed, right? And that's how I prefer to do it. And the drive by drive that I'm working on uh, does that. Well, you get stats based on how things are going in the game. And it just didn't dawn on me till a couple of weeks ago that I'm overthinking it. You know what? 49 highlight football could actually be a really good game. So I will take some energy over the next couple of months to see if I can pull it together, as well with the 49 soccer. And I just sent out an email to everybody just an hour before I started live streaming and mentioned about soccer in there, and I've already got so many responses on, oh yeah, you got to do soccer, the other football, you just got to do that, and so uh, those are both because yeah, if ever and I said this in the letters, if ever there was a game that was meant for highlight, it's definitely soccer. But having thought it through, football also I think it's going to be a challenge to get it right if I can even get it right. But that's a part of the game development that I really enjoy. So anyway, I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself. That's all the topic for next week, and I'll talk more about it. But the key thing is with um, football is so the 49 quick decks football, 49 on the turf football are no longer going to be available for sale after tomorrow or the 31st of December, depending when you're watching this stream. And that's because I'm going to reimagine the game. I'm not going to reinvent the like with QuickDecks version 2, there was a lot of changes to the cards. I added a ton of cards. I made some subtle little changes to the cards. So it really needed its own deck. To me, the quick decks and the on the turf comes from a pretty good base that I already have. And so if you have those games, not to worry. You're not going to have to come up with a version 2. Um, I think that's one thing that drove me crazy about the Action PC is end up having to buy a brand new game every single year, even though, like some of the upgrades you didn't really care about. So I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to keep the game current. Mostly for football, though, it's to make it easier for me to produce because I'm getting busier and I really appreciate all the orders that I'm getting. I just now need to kind of streamline how I get things done. And that's part of the reasoning behind pulling football off. I'm going to kind of reimagine it. And when I come back out, it'll be easier for me to produce. It'll still be the same game. I might change the name. All right. Let's just a quick look here. Really into the football game, Joe. Yeah. Well, it is what it is. It's kind of definitely a 49 flavor game, I guess, which is what AI, and Alfie is who I call my AI, and is what he comes up with for me. So that's my segue into, let's talk a little bit about AI. And I am definitely not an expert. I'm barely a novice when it comes to AI. Uh, my son, who lives in St. George here, he's taken courses on it. He's tried to talk me through it, and which is good. I appreciate it. And he's trying to figure out his little niche for how he's going to, change his career and make a living using AI, because this is coming at us, whether we want it to or not. Think of the internet, the early days of the internet. And, like for me as a scientist, it was, wow, I have access to, I think it was the MIT library, which we had first access to. And so we were able to, rather than having to get somebody to send a letter, get the letter approved to be able to get a paper and get the paper sent out, it took weeks, sometimes months to get papers, if there was a specific paper we were trying to find. And then when the internet came along, it was like, wow, we got access to this, and we can have it within like a day, and then print it. And yeah, anyway, that was early days of internet. And of course now it's just like everything is on the internet, and now everything is going to be um, AI'd by the internet. So I'm definitely a novice as I'm getting to this. But, like, so what is AI? And this is just all from my perspective. So just to give you, yeah, just my take on what AI is. And I know there's a number in the user community, all the sport board game community, not just the 49 sport game community, who do use AI for certain things. And what it is and what it can do really well is do some advanced searching. Although, caveat, it doesn't always come up with the right answer. So just so you know, be forewarned. It'll tell you it's come up with the right answer. It's very good at that, and is very good at blowing smoke and telling you how great you are, but it doesn't always get it right. So just an FYI. Um, and so it's good at that. It's great at. So I was coming up with a bit of a fictional lacrosse game, and just kind of playing around one night, just as a way to see if I can get used to AI. Can it actually help me create a game? And no, it's not at that anywhere near that point. Not from a strategic level, a game that I like to play or that I like to make. Maybe from a straight dice, statistics, straight numbers game, it might be able to help you. Although I still wouldn't trust it. But what it is really good at is coming up with names. What it is, yeah, I mean, come up with league names, team names, player names. It's, it has access to a lot. And what's important is how you form the question to it. it. And that really is the key to using AI that I've found, is you can't be you can be very general in your questions, but your answers are not going to be good. Your best answers are going to be when you get very specific on what you're looking for. And then it understands better. And I wish when they kind of did the programming and their responses to people's questions, that they were more, and so now all my this experience is all based on ChatGPT. Some of the other ones might be better. I played a lot with Grok. I like Grok, but it's the way I use it on my phone. It's just all voice, and you can get to the words. And I kind of sometimes want more words, especially if I'm sitting with my wife and she's watching TV. I don't want to be having all that noise. So anyway, yeah, getting those questions worded is really important. So let's go here. So kind of, how do I use AI? So I played with, like I said, a fictional lacrosse, and see what I came up with, and came up with great names. That was about what AI was good for. So let's go to here, and this is my Chat GPT screen. And you can see some of the projects that I've been working on here. And for those of you who are thinking of using it and you want to use ChatGPT, this is a really important part of what you are going to need to do in order to not get too frustrated. And this is just experience, because I thought originally on that, like it's just going to remember everything. It doesn't. It doesn't remember everything. You have to tell it what you want it to remember, And if you have a specific project, like in this case here, like the 49 highlight football project, if I have him try and do some research for me and I want to keep all of that research, I need to have a project for it. And so if I click on the highlight football, I'm not even sure what's going to be here, but let's get back to here and click on the highlight football. Uh, so this is, if I go back and kind of scroll back through it all, this is questions I've asked it. And when it gives you answers, it doesn't give you a yes or no, and you can tell it to be as terse as you want, and it just is programmed to come up with the next best steps. This builds perfectly. I mean, you just got to get used to stuff like that. And it's going to just go through so many different things as you as you get used to it. And so I'm still not, because I want to go back in and program what the AI is and have it work better. But we know that that is definitely coming. You know, we know for sure that's coming. So actually, let's go back to the Chat GPT here and show you kind of the types of things that I have been using it for. So on the left-hand side, we've got my projects set up here, and you can see I've got Highlight Soccer, the World War II board game. I'll show you that in just a minute, and golf and lines in usage. And most of those are just kind of places where I've asked it questions for trying to look up data, and it's gone and looked up data and it's fudged answers. And I got mad at it and told it to go back and go to specific sites and give me better data and don't do that again. And so I've done all of that and saved it within these projects. So anytime you click on a project, so if I go to like 49 lines in usage here, I've got 3 different ones, and the titles on it don't match exactly what they are. So this one here, the synthetic plus or minus formula. This is really what AI can be really good for. And so, as you know, I just released the 55-56 season. There were no shots on goal. There was no plus minus. And so how do I come up with that? And so it actually helped me. I think if I scroll back far enough, it came up with an idea of what I would do to make an average over a number of years for shots on goal. And I fed it a number of different parameters that I wanted to look at, and then came up with an Excel formula basically that allowed me to enter data in and eventually come up with the plus minus and shots on goal, even though they weren't really available, right? So that's what is really good for. Another thing that it has been amazing for me is I've got a brand new computer as of like 2 months ago, and it's a MacBook Pro. I mean, it's really good. It's the latest silicon chip that's in it, and it's caused me no end of problem. And I spent probably a total of 10 hours on the phone with Apple to see if they could help me figure it out, because what would happen is it kept on freezing up. Kind of like last week during the audio portion, when I was having audio issues, it seemed like every 20 seconds the audio would freeze up. And as it turned out, it wasn't an audio problem. Well, it was. It was a combination of my wireless microphone and the upgrade that I'd done with the software. And anyway, the Mac specialists couldn't help me out. They're still scratching their head trying to figure out what was going on. Well, I thought, let me ask Alfie. Let me go to my Chat GPT, because it kind of knows me now. And he went through and he really put through a good plan of how to fix it, and he did. Fixed it, totally fixed it. And so that's the type of thing it's good for. Uh, and just on that note as well, where we're talking about AI, is I have a friend in town here. He's a pilot for Delta, and he's got just a few years left before he retires. So he does a lot of teaching. So he's kind of mature in their whole process. So he does a lot of teaching, and he uses AI a lot for doing the teaching. And as soon as he said that, I looked at him and says, "You mean you kind of like fly the plane using AI?" Because if that's the case, then oh, I'm grounded. But he laughed. He says, no, it says this is just for training. They still have to have the manual. They still go through the manual. They got their checklist. They go one by one through the checklist. He says, but what AI has been really good at is they've got all of their manuals online, and AI is really great at being able to take a question and jump to the right part of the manual to show the answer and all the related documents, and they're all right there. He says he doesn't have to go, look through 8 different books to try and find anything. It just pulls it all up. So something that AI is good for. And then last night we had friends from Houston come through. They used to live here in St. George, and he's a doctor. And so we got talking about AI this morning too. And he's, same thing. Like we're leading edge of AI. There's a lot of robotics being used in AI right now, in surgeries and whatnot. Although they always have a surgeon in case the robotics mess up. So things are definitely moving that way. And he's kind of a little bit old school like I am. He's like, he says that he likes it because it can, the same way as John can get to answers for the aircraft, for the A320 Airbus, I think is what he works on or he flies. And anyway, Norm was, like, I go to it. And so I said, well, is it always right? And he says, no, it's not always right. It can be close, but it's not always right. And so he's just be forewarned, like if you have a doctor who says they're relying on AI, then go somewhere else, is basically what he's saying. Although, like we're in its infancy, this is going to change over the next little while. Okay, so that's a couple of things on how uh, other people are using AI and kind of how I am. Let's just have a quick look here at the some questions here. Uh, you're right. So yeah, so Demi 1970s, mistakes with ChatGPT versus Grok. Um, if I had the same and interaction with Grok that I can have with ChatGPT, I'd probably tend to lean towards Grok. Um, I think well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know. There's so many people working on it. It's going to be good no matter what. It's going to get there. So anyway, let's just go back to this here. Um, and I saw a comment so with the golf, I was trying to get it to help me create some holes and do images for holes. And that particular image isn't really all that thrilling and whatnot. Um, yeah, so it's not a graded image, but let me show you an image that I think was really good. And so let me give you a little preface on this here. So you notice in one of the tabs on the left hand side said World War II war game, and so it's always been in my mind. I've wanted to do one, and I'm kind of I like games where you have some strategic thinking, uh, but like in war, it's one of a game that I liked is a simulation game, and I'm not a real big simulation game kind of guy. I'd rather have some strategy into it. But Target for Today was the game, and you're flying a B-52 in World War II, and you get daytime bombing, and like you really have no agency at all over what goes on. Guys you get killed, you get shrapnel, you have landing gear problems, all the things that happen that these guys had no agency over themselves. So true simulation kind of game was is what that is. And but that's not what I was looking for when I did a World War II game. I wanted something where you had some decision making, although there's still things that's going to happen and randomness that's going to also take guys out. And no matter what you do, no matter how good your strategy is on it. Okay, so one of my plans was to have a group of guys. Think of this like maybe Saving Private Ryan, and we have a group of guys, and they have to go out and do something, and they come across, uh, and this is a scenario that I came up with. Was okay. So they come across, they're on a hill, and they're looking kind of down at a river, and the river they can't tell. It's not super fast moving, but they can't tell how deep it is. There's a bridge, On the other side of the bridge, there's a barn. Like directly across the bridge, there's a barn. And there's no windows on the barn looking out on the bridge, so you know you're pretty safe there to get across it. However, in behind it, there's a house, like a little ways, maybe like 50 yards back, there's a house. And it's a two-story house, and there is a window on the top floor, which would be a perfect place for a sniper. But you can't really tell if they would have total access to the whole bridge or not, so you don't know. So the idea with the scenario then is, depending on the guys that you have, do you have somebody who can swim or, get across and be stealthy and that kind of stuff. So I described that scene to ChatGPT and said, can you create me an image of what that looks like? And this is the image that it came up with. So you can see the guys on the bottom left there, kind of hiding and scouting it out. And one guy's got the binoculars, and there's the barn on the other side of the bridge, and the house kind of then behind, which has got there's a little triangle symbol on the upper uh, window there, and that's just a marker for it's a potentially a sniper there. But that's what ChatGPT came up with, and so I thought that's pretty cool. I thought that was, yeah, kind of fun. So anyway, that is another thing that I think you can find useful for ChatGPT. How how we can work with it and with our sports. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's at a point where it's going to create a game. Maybe if you can afford to spend the hundreds of dollars a month on the latest greatest, maybe it can help you with stuff like that. But what I find is that, at least again, this is my experience here is with ChatGPT, is it's going to come up with answers for you. You can tell, hey, I'd like to create a board game. Can you help me? And oh yeah, we can do a great job of this together. And say, okay, well, I want to create a football game and I want it to do this and this and this. And well, here's how you can do it. And if you want, I'll replay a whole season for you and tell you how close it is. Well, you haven't figured out anything yet, and it's trying to tell you what it wants to do, stuff like that. So, what I learned early on with ChatGPT was, and this is with Grok as well, the two that I've worked with, is that it's not just it's way more than a search engine. Although, quick sidebar on this. So ChatGPT does have it's called ChatGPT Atlas, and it is a search engine. And I use it, but what I use it for is, what I like about it is when you call it up, like you click on the icon to bring up the ChatGPT Atlas, it brings up where you left it off. And I don't know, so I use Chrome and I use Safari, and they don't do that. They have a homepage. You start on their homepage. I don't know if the Windows ones do that or not. I think they do, but Edge, I think it's called, but I don't know. ChatGPT brings up where you just were. So when I'm creating seasons, I want to go immediately to that season, or I want to go to the team color code. So I'll go to truecolor.net. That's where I get my RGB values for the coloring for it. And it's there. I just click on it and it's super fast. And that's as much as I played with it. So it might do way more than that, but that's how much I use it for right now. So what I learned though early on was that, so many of you know, like I've got a bit of a science background and been a little bit entrepreneurial and learned early. And many people you've heard many people say this, that, hire people that are smarter than you. And that's exactly what has helped me through my whole career. There's always people way smarter than you. So I had the opportunity to hire quite a few PhDs, and a young PhD coming out of school, very book smart, can find answers quickly. They know how to do research, all that kind of stuff, but they don't know what you know, and they don't know what it is necessarily that you are doing in whatever field you're in, and they have to learn that. And so I figured out with the Chat GPT and with Grok that I need to I need to treat Chat GPT and Grok like they're a brand new PhD student. So they're way smarter than me, no question about it, but they don't know what I know. So I have to teach them to learn what I know. And so when you ask questions of it, be specific, really think through. And you'll notice as you do that, if you haven't done much of it, you'll notice as you do it more and more, what kind of responses you get. And if they're not the responses you're looking for, it's not because they're not trying, it's because they're misinterpreting your question. So getting the questions right is super important, and being detailed and specific. The more detailed and specific you can be, the more detailed and specific the answers are going to be as well. Um, and I'm not sure how much you guys use AI. Curious to know. I mean, like I say, I've seen uh, lots of images and whatnot. You can clearly tell which ones are AI images now, and that'll change over time. You know, like I just showed you my image from the scene, the World War II scene, and way I asked it to. I told you, you know, the image that I had in my mind, but then I told it I wanted it to be like a sketch that a sergeant would do who's looking at that scene. So make it like it's his sketchbook. Here's what I'm seeing right now. And that's what I came up with. So, you know, I think it is really good for doing stuff like that. Uh, I, I missed one comment, which I need to go back on, and that is highlight lacrosse. So I'll just touch base on lacrosse. So back in 2009, when I was kind of getting tired of the what was available for computer games, and I was spending a fair amount of time, wasn't that was more hands-on at my work, training and teaching rather than being a computer guy. But I was ready to get things back to the tabletop, back to when I was younger, and so started digging some of my older games out. And then I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna. I played lacrosse. I played indoor lacrosse. I'm from Canada. You'd think I played hockey, and I did until, by Canadian standards, I wasn't a great skater. I could run, I couldn't skate. I don't know why. Anyway, so I took up indoor lacrosse. And so when I first started working on a game in 2009, so fast forward from when I was a kid through always having kids years and playing computer games, now getting back to the tabletop. First one was actually a lacrosse game, is what I started working on. So there was a comment on highlight lacrosse would be fun, and it really would. It really would. So as you can imagine, though, that the list of what I want to do and what I'm able to do are pretty mismatched right now because uh, we go back to this here projects. There's a lot of projects there, and that's not all the projects that I have going on. And so, it's important for me to like this year to upgrade hockey to version 2. It just felt like it needed it. I'm at a point now with football. I don't think it needs an upgrade, but I think it needs a simplification because there's 2 games, and going forward, there's going to be 1 game. And so, yeah, so check in next Tuesday, and we'll go through it in far more detail. Um, Oh yeah, box lacrosse is an awesome sport. Yeah, especially live. It is. It's fun. I had a buddy who coached in the NLL for a number of years, so I used to go and hang out with him, and I'd go for the weekend, and I got to be on the floor with the guys and shoot on goalies. The backup goalie was not getting any work, so I get to go do stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. And then yeah, they get the music going, and he was in Colorado for a number of years, and the place was packed for every game at that time. I don't know if it still is. I don't really follow it that closely anymore. Even though there's a team in Vegas, I need to get down there and see a game. But yeah, definitely a fun game. Tough, athletic game. It's real fun. So anyway, I think that's about it for today. Where are we at? We're at, wow, 55 minutes. So I keep thinking I'm going to do like 40, 45 minutes, and I keep talking too much. But anyway, uh, a little bit on 49 highlight hockey. So again, as we keep going forward, I think either way works great. It's going to be fun as we go through the WHA project to see how it pans out with the new top lines on the chart for the lines, and it's for the forwards and the defensemen are both changed on this. So it's a good one, but to see how it all matches up from a data perspective. So again, I don't see any real outliers in what's going on, whether you play just straight rebound or whether you go a normal save, rebound save. Both are going to work good. So anyway, I really appreciate everybody coming by, and taking time to watch the live feed, and for those of you watching afterward, appreciate it. Take care. Happy New Year. Be safe out there, and we will see you hopefully next Tuesday. All right.